Nigeria launches huge rescue operation after video appears to show around 600 people abducted. Hundreds feared abducted in Nigeria, as Tinubu orders immediate rescue. Nigeria has ordered an immediate national rescue operation after a mass abduction in Niger State escalated into what could be one of the country's largest kidnapping incidents in recent years. President Bola Tinubu has directed the military, police, intelligence services, and other security agencies to find the captives and bring them home. The most alarming figure, around 600 people, has not yet been officially confirmed. It emerged after footage circulated online appearing to show a vast group of captives, including women, children, and older people, surrounded by armed men in a forested location, a kidnapping that may be far bigger than first thought. The attacks took place on Friday, August 21st, across communities in Borgu local government area of Niger State. Armed men targeted villages and worshippers, with people reportedly seized during attacks connected to Friday prayers. Early accounts suggested dozens of people had been taken. The scale of the crisis changed dramatically after footage began circulating on Facebook and WhatsApp showing what residents said were hundreds of abductees gathered together under armed guard. People familiar with the affected communities said they recognized relatives among those shown. Children could reportedly be heard crying while an armed man addressed families and encouraged them to identify people in the group. That footage is now central to understanding the scale of the attack. But there is an important distinction between what it appears to show and what Nigerian authorities have formally established. An exact count of the captives has not been independently verified, and authorities have not publicly confirmed that precisely 600 people were abducted. Tinubu orders an immediate rescue. The uncertainty over the final number has not stopped Nigeria's federal government from escalating its response. Tinubu ordered the armed forces, Nigeria Police Force, Department of State Services, and other relevant security and intelligence bodies to begin a coordinated rescue operation. He also ordered Nigeria's service chiefs to give him regular briefings until those abducted have been accounted for. The order turns what began as a remote attack in north-central Nigeria into an urgent test of the federal government's ability to locate and recover a potentially enormous group of civilians. Tinubu described those responsible as enemies of peace and humanity, and promised that the perpetrators would face justice. His statement also referred to people being killed during the violence, although a definitive publicly verified death toll from the coordinated attacks remains unclear. For the families involved, however, the immediate issue is simpler. Hundreds of people may now be somewhere in difficult forest terrain, and every additional day gives their captors more opportunity to move them, divide them into smaller groups, or increase pressure for ransom women, children, and older people among the captives. The reported composition of the abducted group makes the operation particularly difficult. Residents have described women, children, elderly people, and mothers carrying infants among those taken. Moving a group numbering even several hundred people through remote territory creates significant logistical demands for the kidnappers, but it also creates an immense challenge for security forces. A rescue attempt has to locate the group without triggering violence against civilians, who may be surrounded by armed captors. The sheer number also raises another question: whether all of the people visible in the footage were seized during one attack, or whether captives from several raids have been gathered together. The attacks affected multiple communities in Borgu, making the precise sequence and number of abductions especially important. There is also no publicly confirmed claim of responsibility tying the operation to a particular armed organization. Nigeria has faced violence from several different types of armed groups, and attributing a specific attack before authorities establish responsibility risks confusing criminal banditry, ransom kidnapping, and militant violence. Nigeria's kidnapping crisis has become a national security problem. Mass abduction is not a new phenomenon in Nigeria. Armed gangs have repeatedly discovered that taking civilians can generate money, leverage, and fear, while forcing security agencies into difficult operations across huge areas of countryside. Northwestern and north-central Nigeria have become particularly vulnerable. Armed groups use forests and sparsely governed territory to move between communities, attack roads and villages, seize civilians, and retreat before security forces can respond. The Borgu attack is especially significant because of its reported scale. Even if the final number is substantially lower than 600, the possibility that hundreds of civilians were taken in coordinated raids exposes the continued ability of armed groups to mobilize, strike several locations, and remove large numbers of people. It also comes despite recent rescue operations that demonstrated the government can recover large groups of captives. Earlier in August, Nigerian security agencies announced the rescue of hundreds of people from separate kidnapping incidents, including victims recovered from forest terrain in Niger State. That creates an uncomfortable contradiction. Nigerian forces are capable of mounting large rescue operations, yet criminal groups remain capable of generating new hostage crises faster than the underlying threat is being eliminated. The video changes the pressure on the government. The emergence of footage matters beyond establishing a possible victim count. It gives families something they did not have immediately after the attacks: potential visual evidence that relatives are alive. It also gives the kidnappers a powerful instrument. Publicly displaying large numbers of captives can create fear, demonstrate control, and place enormous political pressure on authorities. Families who believe they have identified relatives are unlikely to be satisfied with general assurances that security operations are continuing. Tinubu's decision to demand regular briefings reflects that pressure. The government is now publicly committed not merely to pursuing the attackers, but to accounting for those taken. The size of the group makes that promise difficult. Authorities will ultimately need a reliable list of the missing, confirmation of how many people were abducted, information about whether captives have been separated, and evidence establishing who carried out the attacks. What happens next? The first priority will be intelligence. Security forces need to establish where the captives were taken, whether the video location can be identified, and whether the group remains together. Telephone activity, local witnesses, aerial surveillance, and information from surrounding communities could all become critical. Authorities will also have to balance speed against the danger of an assault. Hundreds of civilians concentrated around armed kidnappers would make any direct military operation extraordinarily sensitive, particularly where children and elderly people are present. For now, one number dominates the story, but it should not yet be treated as settled fact. Around 600 people may have been taken, and the footage appears consistent with an abduction on a vast scale, but Nigeria has not produced a definitive official count. What is no longer uncertain is the scale of the federal response. Tinubu has ordered Nigeria's security machinery to find the missing, demanded continuing updates from his commanders, and publicly committed the government to bringing the captives home. If the estimate of around 600 is ultimately confirmed, the operation will become not only a rescue mission, but one of the starkest tests yet of whether Nigeria can prevent mass kidnapping from becoming a permanent weapon against its most vulnerable communities.